Good morning, everybody. I hope you're all ready for another week of learning, and today we are going to be writing part 3 and 4 of our third person retell of The Wizard of Oz. So to start with, I want to read to you what we are using as part 3 and 4 from The Wizard of Oz book, so you can remember the steps, but don't forget to look back at your plan and we will think about that a little bit later. So this would be the beginning of part 3. The house whirled around 2 or 3 times and rose slowly through the air. Dorothy felt as if she were going up in a balloon. The north and south winds met where the house stood, and made it the exact centre of the cyclone. In the middle of the cyclone the air is generally still, but the great pressure of the wind on every side of the house raised it up higher and higher, until it was at the very top of the cyclone, and there it remained, and was carried miles and miles away as easily as you could carry a feather. It was very dark, and the wind howled horribly around her, but Dorothy found she was riding quite easily. After the first few whirls around, and one other time, when the house tipped badly, she felt as if she were being rocked gently, like a baby in a cradle. Toto did not like it. He ran about the room, now here, now there, barking loudly, but Dorothy sat quite still on the floor and waited to see what would happen. Once Toto got too near the open trap-door and fell in, and at first the little girl thought she had lost him. But soon she saw one of his ears sticking up through the hole, for the strong pressure of the air was keeping him up so that he could not fall. She crept to the hole, caught Toto by the ear, and dragged him into the room again, afterwards closing the trap-door so that no more accidents could happen. Hour after hour passed by, and slowly Dorothy got over her fright, but she felt quite lonely, and the wind shrieked so loudly all about her that she nearly became deaf. At first she had wondered if she would be dashed to pieces when the house fell again, but as the hours passed and nothing terrible happened, she stopped worrying and resolved to wait calmly and see what the future would bring. At last she crawled over the swaying floor to her bed and lay down upon it, and Toto followed and lay down beside her. In spite of the swaying of the house, the wailing of the wind, Dorothy soon closed her eyes. Okay, so that would be our part 3. And then part 4 is based on the first page or so of chapter 2. So it's when the house lands and Dorothy opens it and sees this amazing land. So let's read the first page of chapter 2. So this would be part 4. She was awakened by a shock so sudden and severe that if Dorothy had not been lying on the soft bed, she might have been hurt. As it was, the jar made her catch her breath and wonder what had happened, and Toto put his cold little nose into her face and whined dismally. Dorothy sat up and noticed that the house was not moving, nor was it dark, for the bright sunshine came in at the window, flooding the little room. She sprang from her bed and, with Toto at her heels, ran and opened the door. The little girl gave a cry of amazement and looked about her, her eyes growing bigger and bigger at the wonderful sight she saw. The cyclone had set the house down, very gently, for a cyclone, in the midst of a country of marvellous beauty. There were lovely patches of green swan all about, with stately trees bearing rich and luscious fruits. Banks of gorgeous flowers were on every hand, and birds with rare and brilliant plumage sang and fluttered in the trees and bushes. A little way off was a small brook, rushing and sparkling along between green banks, and murmuring in a voice very grateful to a little girl who had lived so long on the dry, grey prairies. Okay, so there we have the end of chapter 1 and the beginning of chapter 2, which would relate to our part 1 and part 3, and part 4. So today, like I said at the beginning, we are going to be drafting part 3 and 4 today. So I'm going to model to you how to turn your plan into your draft again. Okay, so remember, I've got my plan in front of me to remind me, and I've got my vocabulary with me as well. So I'm going to begin with Oh, let me make that a little bit bigger for you. Dorothy lay on the warped wooden floor. Unconscious. As the house rose higher and higher in the cyclone. Anxious. So that's an example of the emotion comma sentence. So I've got my emotion, which is anxious, then my comma. Toto yelped. Yelped, causing his owner to stir. So if somebody stirs, that means they're starting to wake up, not like stir in a bowl, sorry. Okay, so disorientated. So that means when you're not quite sure what's going on. Dorothy took in her surroundings. Okay. The sky was dark. So you would have seen the DD sentence, okay? So I'm giving some description and then I'm going to give extra detail behind my colon. Okay, so my extra detail is a colour Dorothy had never seen before. Although the wind howled and shrieked, the house rocked gently, which was unusual considering they were in a cyclone. So I've tried to magpie that from the book a little bit. I know it's not in the exact same kind of place, but I thought actually I could use that in my writing. Okay. And then I'm going to use the more sentence. The more the house rocked. Just going to go on to just move that up a little bit. The more the house rocked, the more Dorothy and Toto struggled to stay awake. Slowly, they both drifted off to sleep. Okay, so let me make that a little bit smaller so it all fits. So Dorothy lay on the warped wooden floor unconscious as the house rose higher and higher in the cyclone. Anxious, Toto yelped, causing his owner to stir. Disorientated, Dorothy took in her surroundings. The sky was dark, a colour Dorothy had never seen before. Although the wind howled and shrieked, the house rocked gently, which was unusual considering they were in a cyclone. The more the house rocked, the more... Oh, I've got that twice. The more the house rocked, the more Dorothy and Toto struggled to stay awake. Slowly, they both drifted off. I'm going to say drifted off into a peaceful sleep. Okay, so now what I want to do is, so I've completed task 1. Now I want to check I've got everything from my plan that I said that I was going to write, I wanted to write about. So I told my reader that how the house was lifted I said the sky was dark and described that and added some extra information. I explained that the wind was howling and shrieking. I didn't say that it felt like being cradled, but I said that she felt like she was being rocked. So I am going to say that I did use that. And then I talked about Dorothy falling asleep. Okay. Then I'm going to think about my vocabulary. I used the word shrieked. I used the word howled. I used gently, which is similar to gentle. I used drifted. So I didn't use whirled or cradled. So when I come to edit this part on Wednesday next week, I might think about using those in there. Okay. And then, like we normally do when we do some independent writing, I would like you to self-assess at the end. Okay. So you've got your margin codes there, and you have got what you might need to highlight or underline in a different colour. If you do need any help with anything, please let Mr. Bates or I know, and we will try and help you as soon as we possibly can. Or Miss Wetton or Mr. Grocott might help you as well. Okay, so that is it from me. Have a really good go, and I'm excited to see how you finish your stories.